right, good evening. It's your boy Blackbeard. I'm back. Just want to welcome all the ladies and gentlemen, and of course, you tuned in for another classic. So in tonight's tape, what I want to do is talk a little bit about the history regarding the Moslems versus the Mamluks. All right, some of the history regarding the Moslems versus the Mamluks. Now, if you never heard some of these terms, by the end of tonight's tape, they should make a little bit more sense to you. But that's what we're going to talk about, all right? So please, get a pen and paper, have your iPhone with you or whatever search engine you use, Google, whatever, and just research some of the terms that I may use. And when I drop the sources, look into it on your own. But we're going to talk about the history of the Moslems versus the Mamluks, and just also look a little deeper into some of these religious conflicts that are going on in the world right now, and look into the historical origin of some of them, all right? So we're going to kind of jump around and deal with a lot of different things. But nevertheless, we're going over the history concerning the Moslems and the Mamluks, all right? So the prelude for tonight's tape, what I want to do is read some information that was left behind by a freed and accepted knight or Freemason named Albert Pike, all right? And it was written around 1871, and basically it is a letter talking about some of the, future conflicts that needed to happen according to the Freemasonic Mamluk agenda, all right? So let's look into this a little bit and see what Albert Pike wrote. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Hold on, let me scroll down. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compassion or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out in the public. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Now, before we go forward, you may have some people say, well, Albert Pike didn't write this and blah, 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 blah. I'm not really concerned with who wrote it. Whoever wrote it was speaking on behalf of the Freemasonic Knight and the Mamluk societies, that are running this world behind closed doors. And it sounds very, very consistent with some of the things we've been seeing going on in the world. So for some of us that may not know exactly what some of this was talking about, let me give you a brief overview of it real quick. So the first thing it says is that the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati, or the secret Mamluk society, to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. Well, first of all, World War I, what that World War was about was destroying some of those original Moorish Republic families that were still ruling Eastern Europe, all right? And they were still branching off from those Holy Roman Empire families. Remember, in the ancient world, or even in the medieval classical world, Europe was, kind of sectioned off into provinces, states, kingdoms, fiefdoms, empires, etc. And these empires and kingdoms and fiefdoms were ruled by certain families. So as time went on, you had certain groups of people that said, we want to steal the power from those families. And in order to do this, we need to cause a lot of social upheaval and turmoil. So World War I and World War II and World War III were some of the plans in order to do that, to fully break down the Moorish Empire on the Christendom side and on the Islamic side, as far as the Ottoman Empire is concerned. So, the czars of Russia, believe it or not, these were dark-skinned Moorish people, okay? These were dark-skinned Moorish people. And once they took out the czars of Russia and that ancient, Moorish bloodline that was still ruling over Russia, they brought in what's known as communism, atheistic communism, basically where there's no spirituality and the state or this small satanic oligarchy of people can rule the whole thing. So keep in mind that this whole thing is really about creating a Luciferian society that's ruled by a small group of Mamluk, class people, and we'll see who the Mamluks are in a minute. So moving on, it says the Second World War must be fomented to take advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists, and also to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. So as you all know, World War II, which is what they used through the democratic socialist system of Nazism. Because remember now, Adolf Hitler and that Germanic, regime, they were democratic socialists. So here in the United States, the democratic wing is the democratic Naziist, socialist, communist, Marxist movement, Ku Klux Klan movement, Zionist movement. Keep that in mind, that here in North America, you may say, well, where is the communist or the socialist movement? It is the Democratic Party. That's the Ku Klux Klan. That's the Marxist, socialist, communist, Zionist party. You know what I'm saying? That's who it is. And usually they're being financed by international communist and socialist, Mamluks who are ruling over other countries such as Saudi Arabia, so-called Israel, China, etc. Okay, so just keep in mind that the Communist Party here in North America, as far as the United States is concerned, is the Ku Klux Klan Democratic Society or Democratic Party. All right, and then it says that the Third World War will be used to take advantage of the differences between political Zionism and the leaders of the Islamic world. And that's pretty much where we are now. So what I want to do now is go into a little bit of the history of the Muslims versus the Mamluks, so we can see how did these people that's ruling the Islamic world, that's ruling the Christian world, and that's ruling the Jewish world today, how did these people get in that position? Who put them in power? Where did they get their money from, etc.? All right, we're going to go a little bit into that. All right. So we can go ahead and leave out of our Albert Pike letter for the night. So next thing I want to go into is this, and this is going to be a quote coming out of CMB Clock of Destiny, Volume 1. And we're going to revisit this because this is very, very important and imperative for you to understand what's going on today. All right. So quote, during the past 1,367 years, there have been only two world empires, namely the Moorish Empire of the Order of Islam and the Roman Empire of the Order of, quote, Mary and Christ. The Order of, quote, Christ is 173 years old, calculated from 1774, the era which resulted in the birth of the United States Marine Force in Colonial America. Now, also what we're going to be dealing with in tonight's tape is the Moorish Wars that they talk about, dealing with the American Revolution, going all the way into the Civil War. Now, I don't want you all to think that the American Revolution started in 1774 or 1776. It actually started much earlier than that. It really started in about the 1300s from the Mongol invasion. But as far as Rome is concerned, we started getting into war with Rome in the early 1500s, around 1493 up until 1511, 1539, 1540, all right? So we're going to go into how, the bleached out Roman Catholic Church, or the Order of Christ and Mary, has always been going against the Order of Islam, all right? So when I say the Muslims versus the Mamluks, the Muslims are the original Moorish bloodlines that stem from Abraham and Sarah, okay? So we're talking about the full-blooded, dark-skinned people, the people that you see, and you may call them black people or you may call them Negroid people, okay? But the original indigenous copper-colored people who are full-blooded, so-called black people, that's what I'm talking about. So there's a difference now between Muslims and Muslims. So when I'm saying Muslim, I'm spelling that M-O-S-L-E-M, And then you have a Muslim, Muslim. A Muslim would be an indigenous Moorish person who has ancestry from one of the tribes of America as well. All right. And we're dealing with the ancient Hebraic system that was been in America long before Middle Eastern Islam and Judaism. Okay. So that's the Muslim I'm talking about. Now, the Muslim that you all know of are the people who dealing with the religious superstitious system, who are actually the children of the harems. And we're going to go into who they are a little bit in a minute. And also a few years ago, I made a tape called Why Arabs Hate Black People. Why Arabs Hate Black People. And that's another homework assignment you can look into to get a little more history on the difference between Muslims and Muslims. All right. So keep in mind that for the last about 2,000 years, that it's only been two world empires ruling: the Roman Empire of Christ, the bleached out Roman Empire of Christ, and the Moorish Order of Islam. All right. Now, you may not know this, but, North American so-called black people, our ancestry, prior to us being denationalized, was under the Hebraic Order of Islam, believe it or not. The different indigenous autochthonous tribes of the Americas, they were more in league with the Order of Islam versus the Order of Rome, okay? Keep that in mind. So although this in South America, most of the countries in South America may be Roman Catholic today, but you're going to understand that by the end of this tape that they became Roman Catholic because of the wars that the Moors went through dealing with, the Roman Catholic society here in the Americas, Northwest Africa, and Europa. All right. So keep that in mind. So moving on, this is what you need to understand too. In order to understand why the Roman Catholic Church, under the Spanish government, which really was all Rome, why they came to North America, you have to understand that the Moorish Empire that I'm talking about goes back to Pangea. So we talking about something that was tens of thousands of years ago. We talking about the times where the Americas, Northwest Africa, and Europa, or at least that landmass that we call Europe today, when all that was connected, when the Atlantic Ocean may have been just a lake or a few rivers. So we talking about something that was tens of thousands of years ago. And during that ancient time, these are the times when the pyramids were built, and this is the ancient Moorish Empire that we're talking about. So that's why you have, descendants of Shem in all of those places. You have them in the Americas, you have them in Northwest Africa, and you also have them in Europa, the descendants of Shem. And also some of the descendants of Ham was, intermixing in that whole empire as well. So when I say the Moorish Empire, I don't want you all to think about no Arab empire that went into Europe in 711 AD. I'm talking about the Moorish Empire that goes back to like 70,000 BC. Okay? Something like that. So keep that in mind, all right? Also, too, keep in mind that this Moorish Empire that I'm talking about stems from Peru, through Mexico, through the entire Gulf of Mexico, through Alabama, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean into Northwest Africa, on into what we call the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm talking about a very, very vast empire, all right? A very, very vast empire, all right? So let's go to the next thing. So modern Roman Catholicism. Modern Roman Catholicism, I talked about this before in a previous tape, but basically the dirty Moorish people who originally started the Roman Empire, they were full-blooded, but from some of their corrupt practices and from some of their dirty ancient ways that they had kept since Babylon and they had kept since Sodom, they basically kept the false pagan idol worship system and reinstituted that in what we know of as Roman Catholicism, okay? And keep in mind that they took some of the original tools for Roman Catholicism from the ancient Hebraic system. All right, keep that in mind as well. So as I said, Roman Catholicism, or at least the modern Roman Catholicism, the Roman Catholicism that came and was in war with the Americas in the late 1400s, the 1500s, and the 1600s, that Catholicism. Roman Catholicism equals pagan inverted Judaism. Catholicism was created from the amalgamation of the dirty Moorish Pharisees who conspired against Yahushua or Yeshua or Jesus Christ and the Roman culture / mindset. So keep in mind that those original Judeans or Hebrews, those Moors who conspired against Yeshua, they lived in a Roman society. So they were living around Romans already. And although they had the Mosaic law, some of them were already breaking the commandments. They were eating pork. They started going to gladiator tournaments, and they started basically giving up a lot of their Moorish Judean lifestyle and taking on more of a Roman way of life and a Roman way of thinking. So whenever you all see these movies like The Passion of the Christ, or whenever these movies around Passover come on when they show Jesus, always keep in mind when they show those Pharisees, Nicodemus, and Caiaphas, and all those different Pharisees who were conspiring against him, they were full-blooded Moorish people. So they was Moors. When you see those, the Judean society that's always cheering on and say, yeah, kill him, he's a blasphemer, he's not our real king, Caesar's our king. Those people were Moorish. And also keep in mind that the Romans at this time, such as Pilate and all those other Romans during this time, they were dark-skinned Moorish or so-called black people too. So everybody involved in this is so-called black people. Some of them may have been amalgamated, some of them may have been light-skinned. But nevertheless, the emperor who was ruling over Rome and the lead high priest who was ruling over Jerusalem at this time, these were both dark-skinned Moorish people, okay? So keep in mind that after Yahushua was, as they say in the story, after he was so-called killed, even though we know it didn't go down like that, you got to keep in mind that those Pharisees felt like they didn't have nobody to challenge them. So they pork-eating way of life and all that Roman shit they was doing, you know, just paying taxes to Caesar and all the buck dancing they was really doing for Caesar, they kept that up. And since they're the leadership of the community, you know that the masses of the Jewish people were doing it too. So these are the first generations of what we call Romanized Christians, Romanized Jewish Christians, okay? Keep that in mind. So you got to remember that for the longest, the Roman government was killing the original Jewish people. But after they took Yahushua out, after the Nicene Council, after those different Roman, you know, leaders and officials started meeting with the different Pharisees and Sadducees and stuff, they created an entire brand new religion. But this brand new religion, it wasn't going to be as strict as the original, you know, Hebraic religion. You know, they was going to allow them to eat pork because the Romans was looking at it like this. Okay, we'll get down with the Jewish thing, but we got to include some of our Roman stuffs too. So our pagan holiday of the winter solstice, we need to include that. Our pagan holiday of the spring equinox, we need to include that. The fact that we eat pork, we need to include that. So they had all this shit that they wanted to include, and those Jewish high priests allowed them to include it. So this amalgamated, included religion of Jewish and Roman is what you all call Christianity. So Christianity is an amalgamated religion of Jewish culture and Roman culture. That's why Christians eat pork, but yet they try to say that they deal with Yahushua, but yet Yahushua was not Christian. He was a Hebrew. So keep in mind that Christianity came after Yahushua's death. He was not a Christian, and nor were the people who conspired against him. They were pagan Romans and they were Hebrews, you know, so keep that in mind. So a Hebrew or a Muslim who is less disciplined is actually a Christian. So because keep in mind, Christians, Hebrews, and Muslims really supposed to be all dealing with the same stuff. But the only difference between a Christian and a Hebrew and a Muslim is that a Christian deals with more idol worship and they deal with more paganism. Whereas the Hebrew and the Muslim, they don't. And they try to keep up the ancient Hebraic customs, such as not eating pork and a lot of other things that you see in Leviticus and stuff like that. The Muslims and the Hebrews try to keep that up. So keep in mind that in the late 1400s, in the 1500s, and the 1600s, our ancestors here in the Americas practiced the ancient Islamic Hebraic culture way of life, meaning they were staying away from pork and certain things. So the way that you see so-called black people today in North America and the Christianity that most of us dealing with, that is not what our ancestors was dealing with. We was dealing with actually Hebraic, you know, Judaic, Islamic culture. They weren't dealing with Christianity because we weren't Romans. We're not Romans. You see what I'm saying? That came later after the wars. So moving on. So all branches of Christianity come from either the Protestant movement or the Roman Catholicism. So keep in mind that the Roman Catholic Church, which really is Babylon, you know, they were going crazy in Europe. Those Moors, like after they took Yahushua out, them Roman priests, after they took Yahushua out and after the Nicene councils, and they created the whole Caucasian Jesus image, and they said that we're going to use this to basically enslave the masses of the full-blooded Moorish people. We're going to raise the serf class up, and we're going to use this as the image. But us, as the dirty Pharisees and the dirty original Moorish Roman families, we're going to pretty much sit in the back and send the Caucasoids out there and let them do the shit and let it look like they running the show. And we're going to knight them and we're going to free and accept them. And we're going to make them Mamluks. And I'll go a little bit of that more in a minute. So if you're dealing with a Baptist, you know, a Seventh-day Adventist, and all these other denominations that so-called black people dealing with in Christianity, they all come from Roman Catholicism. They all do. Or they come from the Protestant movement. All right. And even the Protestant movement is still dealing with the ancient Hebraic stuff. They just was trying to get away from the damn crazy ass Roman shit. All right. So keep in mind that all Christianity comes from Judaism. Even Islam, it comes from Judaism. So Judaism, or the ancient Hebraic law, which goes back to Phoenicia and Egypt, Chaldea, all them super ancient cities. That is the original shit. Okay. So now I want to go into this. So we're going to talk about now the difference between Moorish Islam and Arab/Mamluk Islam, because it's a lot of brothers that, you know, in North America, they in the Nation of Islam. You know, I know a lot of brothers who in the prison system, they've come out and they deal with Islam. And, you know, and I hang with a lot of these brothers, you know, they deal with the Hebrew Israelite thing. You know, these my brothers, I fuck with these boys, but a lot of them don't understand that, you know, the Moorish culture of Hebrew in Islam is not the same as what you see those pale Arabs doing. And it's not the same as what you see those pale Slavics doing over there in Palestine right now. It's different. Okay. It's different. So what is a Mamluk/Janissary/freed and accepted Mason or Knight? So we're going to go into the definition of a Mamluk, because you've been hearing me use that term a lot. So what is a Mamluk? All right. Mamluk. This is just coming from basic Wikipedia. Okay. Mamluk is a term most commonly referred to either a non-Muslim slave soldier, freed slave, or Muslim convert assigned to military and administrative duties, a Muslim ruler of slave origin. So let me repeat that. What is a Mamluk or a Janissary? Because remember, I've been using Mamluk, Janissary, freed and accepted Mason, or freed and accepted Knight. We're going into what that is. A Mamluk, a term most commonly used to refer to either a non-Muslim slave soldier, freed slave, or Muslim convert assigned to military and administrative duties, Muslim rulers of slave origin. The most enduring Mamluk realm was the knightly military class in Egypt in the Middle Ages, which developed from the ranks of slave soldiers. These were mostly enslaved Turkish people, Egyptian Coptics, Circassians, Abkhazians, and Georgians. Many Mamluks were also of Balkan origin, Albanians, Greeks, and Southern Slavs. The Mamluk phenomenon was of great political importance for one thing. It endured for nearly 1,000 years from the 9th to the 19th century. Over time, Mamluks became a powerful military knightly class in various societies that were controlled by Muslim rulers. So before we move on, you need to understand that a Mamluk is a person that was a captured slave by the Moorish Empire. So a lot of us hear in history that the Moors was going on these campaigns, or what they call, you know, slave raids. And also too, I don't necessarily agree with some of this stuff, but this is just what some Moorish tribes was doing. And they was going, and in these different Eastern European countries, when they were going on their conquests, they was capturing, you know, Caucasian women, and they was capturing Caucasian men. And what they were doing was, is a lot of the Caucasian men they was capturing, they would put them into slavery. But the ones that were into slavery and they was working and they was, you know, pleasing the Moors and doing what they wanted them to do, some of them, they started to pull to the side and say, hey, man, look, I see you've been working hard. You know, you've been doing what I want you to do. You know, you letting me sleep with your daughter and all this different stuff. So tell you what, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to allow you to go on a war campaign for me. So I'm going to free you from this, you know, working in the galleys, working in the bottom of this boat. I'm going to free you from doing that. I'm going to give you a turban. I'm going to give you a scimitar. And I'm going to pretty much teach you how I do things. And then I'm going to send you to fight on my behalf. And if you win the war, then I'll free you from slavery. And then I'll let you rule over a certain part of the land that we going to get in the conquest. But you're going to have to pay me taxes, though. OK, so this is what our Moorish ancestors was doing. So all these different Circassians, these different Arabs, and all these different folks, you know, that they had enslaved, they was making knights out of them, you know, and they was freeing some of them. OK, so this is where a lot of the power came when you think about the Jewish families that rule today, when you think about the Chinese families that rule today, when you think about the Arab families that rule today. They all descend from the Mamluk class. They were all children of the harem. Because as far as the Arab ones, the Arabs are an amalgamation of Moorish and Caucasian people. Let me repeat that one more time. What we call Arabs, them people that y'all see in the Middle East, them ambiguous looking people, they are an amalgamation from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of full-blooded Moorish men and women amalgamating with the descendants of the Neanderthal class of Europa. Okay. And as I said, when these Moorish knights, the full-blooded ones at least, when they went on these slave campaigns and they was taking these Caucasian men and women, what they was doing was they was putting the women in harems, cleaning them up, sleeping with them and procreating with them. And a lot of the men, they was, like I said, making them work on plantations, farms, making them work at the bottom of galleys and etc. And all the Caucasoid women that were being put in the harems that they sleeping with, they having children with these women. And the children that they're having, they're not full-blooded Moorish people, but they're not full-blooded Caucasian either. They what y'all call mixed people. But after generations and generations of doing this, and after generations of those same mixed people mixing in with other mixed people, they literally created their whole own race and class of people, and that's who you all call Arabs. But they really are an amalgamation of full-blooded Moorish people who descend from the Shemite and Hamitic tribes, and some of the descendants from the Neanderthal tribes from the Japhetic line, believe it or not. So that amalgamation is where those Arab sons came from. So that's how you start getting these Arab-looking men ruling over Islamic territories and wearing Islamic clothes, okay? Because they were taught by their Moorish fathers and mothers how the culture was, but it was the original way. But as you're going to see, they took it and got a little crazy with it, all right? So now you know who the Mamluks are. So when I say a freed and accepted Mason, think about a Mamluk. When you hear that term, oh, the people in the Illuminati, think about a Mamluk. When you hear about, oh, he's a a Shriner, think about a Mamluk. When you hear about, oh, he's in a Great Dragon Society, think he's a Mamluk. When you hear that, oh, man, he's a Zionist warlock, he's a Mamluk. So all these people that are ruling the world today, all these pale and amalgamated people that are ruling the world today, that are under the Christian empires, the Islamic empires, or the Jewish empires, they are all Mamluks. All those families descend from those original men who were freed because they were fighting for those Moors. And that's how they got power. That's how they got power. And eventually, as time went on, all those freed knights, they started to band together, and then they went against their Moorish fathers. All right? They went against their Moorish fathers. All right? That's where you have all the Mamluk sultanates. All right? Which happened around the 12 and the 1300s. That's also one of the reasons why our ancestors fell in Southern Europa and Northwest Africa. It was because of those Mamluks, the amalgamated ones. You can't have an Arab child or have a child and his mom is in a harem and think that he gonna stay cool with you. No, he's not. And then you can't, on top of that, give him a sword and teach him warfare and think he ain't gonna never try to go to war with you. No, he is. He's gonna do that, and that's what the Christian ones did. That's what the Jewish ones did, and that's what the Muslim ones did. They all went to war with the Moorish fathers. That's what happened, So moving on. So keep this in mind. So there was a Christian class of Mamluks. There was an Arab/Muslim class of Mamluks, not Muslim, but Muslim. And there was a Jewish class of Mamluks. So when you all hear about the Rothschilds, when you hear about the Warburgs, when you hear about the Cohens, when you hear about all these different so-called Jewish families that they say are ruling the world, they descend from Mamluk classes. So these groups were all knighted or sponsored by full-blooded Moorish families whom they served and fought for. And they still serve these dirty, hidden, amalgamated Roman Moorish families to this day. Because I'm not really one of these people who think that Caucasoid folks are fully ruling the world. I think that somewhere in Europa and probably different places of the world that there are amalgamated and full-blooded Roman Moorish families that's still running this whole shit. But they got us thinking that it's the pale people running it. But that's probably another tape for another day. So now I want to go into the difference between Moorish Islam / Hebraic culture and Arab / Mamluk religious superstitious culture. That's what we're going to talk about now. Now I need to talk a little bit about what Wahhabism is, or ultra-conservative slave religion. Because keep in mind now, like I said, all the Arabs, they descend from the harem children, and they descend from, that amalgamation in ancient Europe. So although they took on Islam, they didn't really keep up the ancient custom of Islam that we were doing. So it was the same way with the Christian thing. So think back when those dirty Christians in Rome, or those dirty Hebrews in Rome, after Yahushua was killed off, and they felt like they didn't have to keep up the ancient Mosaic law, they started eating pork. They started worshiping, the winter solstice god, Saturn, and all this other Roman shit. And they felt like we ain't got to do the ancient Moorish thing no more. And the Arab ones did the same thing. Once they stopped living under their Moorish fathers and mothers, they stopped having to be under the real Abrahamic law. And once they stopped having to live around the real Saracens, then they started creating this ultra conservative, crazy Islam that y'all see today that's very, very superstitious, having to bow to the sun or Allah 5 times a day and all this other craziness. Not all that stuff was in the ancient Islam that we was dealing with. So it's a difference. You know what I'm saying? It's just a difference. And it is what it is. So now I'm about to read about Wahhabism, because right now the Arab world, so-called Islamic world, is being ruled by the sheikhs of Saudi Arabia. And the sheikhs of Saudi Arabia actually were helped out by the British, German, freed and accepted Mamluks during World War I and World War II come to power. Okay, so think about British Petroleum and think about those different Rothschild oil companies. Okay, they came in and helped the House of Saud get their stuff together. Okay, so remember now, there is a coalition between the House of Saud, or the Saudi Arabians, the Jewish world, and then the Christian world through the United States and Great Britain. That's the triple head of Satan right there. The House of Saud, the Jewish world of Israel, Palestine, and Great Britain / United States. That's the order of Rome right there. Let me repeat that one more time. Remember at the beginning of this tape, I said it was always the Moorish Order of Islam versus the Order of Rome, Christian. Today, the Roman Order of Christianity is the House of Saud, the Jewish families of so-called Palestine and Israel, and the Christian families of Germany and so-called Great Britain. That's the order of Rome today. So although the Jewish people and the Arab people may not necessarily have the image and the phenotype of Rome, but they are in a coalition and they moving as Rome moves. They doing business with Rome. So you got to put them in there with Rome, because if the House of Saud, if they were part of the real Moors and they really were the real people, they wouldn't be fucking with them like that. They would be getting treated just like us. So for the mere fact the House of Saud is moving the way it's moving, they're no different than the Rothschilds and them. Y'all not the real Jews, and y'all not the original Muslims. You're not. And I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to just sidetrack for a minute. So in my personal life, I wear the sheikh headdress that you see a lot of the noblemen wear in what you all call the Middle East. Okay, I wear it in my personal life. And one time I had some on, and some Arab guys saw it, and they really didn't even really know what to say to me. They looked and stuff like that, but they really didn't know what to say. And they kind of was like laughing and talking amongst each other. But the point is that don't y'all be thinking that these Arab Muslims are y'all's brother just because y'all dealing with this Moorish shit, and you thinking that just because our Islam, is the same as theirs, because it's not. And they're going to look at you like you different too. So no, I'm a Moor, and my brothers of Islam are the Hebrew dark-skinned ones and the damn dark-skinned Muslims here in the Americas, in Europa, Northwest Africa, the Middle East, wherever. But them Arab ones, I know that they're not the same as me. And they know that too. So a lot of you brothers here in North America, man, y'all got to watch the Islam y'all dealing with, because y'all really dealing with this Wahhabi shit. And now let's go into that. All right. The Wahhabi mission started as a revivalist movement in the remote and region of Najd. With the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the Al Saud dynasty, and with it, Wahhabism, spread to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. After the discovery of petroleum near the Persian Gulf in 1939, it had access to oil export revenue that grew to billions of dollars. So now you understand what World War I and World War II was really about. Remember, like I said, World War I was about destroying the Moorish czars of Russia. World War I and World War II was also about destroying the Moorish Ottoman Empire that still existed in Eastern Europe and the so-called Middle East. And believe it or not, the last stronghold of that is what you all know of as Iran today, but that's another story as well, or another tape for another day. So let's go over this again. So the Wahhabi mission started as a revivalist movement, and with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the Al Saud dynasty grew with Wahhabism, and they took over the holy city of Mecca and Medina. So in World War I, the British Christian / Jewish Rothschild families, the reason why they was helping those Arabs in the Middle East, those pale Arabs, because they were trying to take out the full-blooded Ottomans, the full-blooded Moors that was still ruling over that area in the late 1800s, the early 1900s. They were still ruling it. So that means there was dark-skinned Moors still ruling what we call Saudi Arabia or the Middle East and East Africa. But after fighting over and over and over and over, okay, fighting over and over and over, and also remember too now, the pale Arabs at that time, you know, they weren't ruling the society. They was at the low end of the society. Okay, they was at the low end of society. Also, too, I want to salute the brother named Asir, the Duke of Tears. Got to salute this brother because he's put out information dealing with this topic. So y'all go look through some of his stuff. But what was going on in World War I is that when the Great Britain and those different Christian, factions were coming into the so-called Middle East, they were trying to destroy the rest of the Moorish Ottoman Empire, the rest of the Moorish Holy Roman families of Eastern Europe. And when they got this done like they wanted to, they allowed the puppet House of Al Saud to be the fake new Moorish empire in the Middle East. So the House of Saudi Arabia actually is the fake new Moorish empire that was put there after World War I, basically so the Rothschild Christian families, Zionist families, could have access to the oil in the Middle East. So this is why you see the business always being done by the United States, Great Britain, and the Jews of Israel. All right, in the House of Saud at least. Because keep in mind now, even though the House of Saud deal with Islam and they're Muslims, they don't get along with all the other Muslim Islamic nations in the Middle East. So you got to ask yourself, why? Why don't the Iranians get along with the House of Saud? Could the Iranians be dealing with a more ancient Moorish culture? And do they know something about the House of Saud? Do they know that the House of Saud are y'all not the real people? So you got to think deeper on why they keep going at Iran and why they don't like Iran. All right. So remember, like after World War I was over, they took over Mecca and Medina, and basically Arab Islam started to take over, and that wild conservative, cutting people's heads off, being real, aggressive towards women and all that type stuff. That's where that culture came from. So that's all part of the whole Hitler movement. Because like I said, it's the triple head of Satan. So the Nazi regime, the Wahhabist regime, the Ku Klux Klan, like all them people are together. Them people are all part of the same shit. They part of the same shit. So now we're gonna go on, and we about to go into the Clock of Destiny, Volume 1 by C.M. Bay, and we're gonna talk now about the history of the harem children, or why Caucasian and Arab men hate Moors. We're gonna go a little deeper into that. All right. All right. It has already been stated elsewhere in this book that during the past 1,367 years, there has been only two world empires, namely the Moorish Order of Islam, the Moorish Empire of the Order of Islam, and the Christian Empire of the Order of Christ. So once again, these are the two world empires that's been ruling basically for the last 2,000 years. Okay. The Moorish Empire of the Order of Islam and the Christian Empire of the Order of Christ. During the world domination of the Moorish nation, the blonde women of Patagonia, South America, had manifested their cultured height in the Society of Islam, which qualified them to establish the Society of the Cross, laden with mystery and emotional false doctrines. This is very important, y'all. Listen up. The corrupt process of the selfish, jealous, amalgamated rulers of the Muslim world converted the Society of Islam into regimentation, human caste, slavery, economic and social degradation, crime, bloodshed, and human destruction, from which was born the army of the mystic banner of the cross, led by militant white women or Patagonian blondes, supported by many wise Muslim women and sons struggling for freedom. I'm going to explain all this in a minute. Which resulted in some 364 years of intermittent conflict, from Peru to Alaska and across the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans in the Northern Hemisphere. A great battle between the two different types of religious superstitions, namely Islamism and Crossism, referred to as the Great Battle between the Crescent and the Cross, or Muhammad and Christ, the period of crucifixion, lynching, burning, and murdering one another over ideas of impractical isms and mystery of variety, which has dominated the world for some 400 years and has manifested with a racial and color scheme of corruption. So what this is going into real quick is, let's start from the top. So it says the corrupt process of the selfish, jealous, amalgamated rulers of the Muslim world converted the society of Islam into a human caste slavery, economic and social degradation, crime, bloodshed, and human destruction. So that's going into, like I say, those pale Arabs and a lot of their Caucasoid mothers who are fighting for freedom. Because you got to remember now, although there were different Hebraic Moors that had the whole harem thing and the whole slavery going on, a lot of other Moorish families were not with that shit. So you had a lot of other Moorish families that was like, we're not really with that slavery thing. So they was against it. So they was trying to free all the Caucasoid women and free the Caucasoid men from slavery. So what they was doing was they started to help the Caucasoid women and their sons, get freed from slavery. And they was going against those other Moors that were real, I guess, kind of, draconian, and they was putting people in slavery. So those, amalgamated sons, once they got their freedom, they became very, very, radical in their ways, I guess. So they changed the Islam into the more Wahhabist, ultra-conservative type of Islam, And I could see how they would get that way because their mothers basically were harem women, and they was used as sex slaves. So I could see how they got at least a very, very, what's the word? Discipline like with women, and to the point where they got a little too crazy. Because if you look at a lot of the Arab women, I mean, they got to have the burqa on, and basically to the point where she can't even see. But if you think about it, the reason their men are like that because their men genetically have a history and a memory of their mothers being used as sex slaves. So that may be some of the inspiration on behind, why they incorporated that into their form of Islam. All right. So let's see. Do I want to go into this? Yeah, we can go into this. The Muslims, with their strenuous isms of religious, mystic worship and superstition, are not guilty of the establishment of the race and color scheme. They are guilty of the caste system and segregation, according to class and rank and method of mystic or superstitious religious worship in the institution called the mosque, from which was born the institution called the church, and the race and color scheme with its marriage license laws established by the Patagonian blonde women of South America. This system prohibits the insurance of a marriage license to Moorish men and women who desire to marry white men and women in North America, especially in the United States. Upon this is founded the myth of black and white people's blood, from which is born out of the church systems, namely the Catholics, the Protestants, the Baptists, and the Jewish Temple of the United States in North America. So that's just giving you a little more information on what I was talking about. That those Muslims, Muslims, they created a religious, superstitious system, and it's also a caste system as well, because believe it or not, they're racist as hell too. They racist as hell too. They don't give a shit about full-blooded black people, because I'm going to tell you this, and David Carroll talks about this in some of his tapes, salute to him. A lot of you brothers be sitting in front of these Arab corner stores. You think these Arab niggas in the gas station giving you black and miles for a few change, or you trying to get you a blunt wrap, and he'd say, I'll just bring the change next time and all this stuff. Y'all really think them folks cool like that. Them folks ain't cool with you at all. Them niggas is sleeping with the women in y'all's community, sleeping with the little black girls in the hood for hot Cheetos and stuff like that, getting head from y'all niggas' little sisters when they getting off the school buses and all that. So these Arabs are in y'all communities dealing with y'all's women. Yeah, they are. These same gas station corner store motherfuckers. So the next time you see one of them motherfuckers, he all smiling at you, ain't shit really funny. Ain't shit funny, because they really in your community, fleecing your community for money. And they part of the House of Saud, Wahhabist, Catholic Church, Mamluk society that really don't give a fuck about full-blooded Moorish people, because they know who you are. They know exactly who you are. That's why when them crackers saw me with my sheikh headdress on, they gave me that look. So these Arabs in y'all communities at these gas stations are not y'all's friends. Stop dapping these people up and all this shit. Stop fucking with them. You know? So moving on. So now what I need to do is go into my PDF. I'm going to my PDF. And now we're going to deal with some more information concerning those wars. So I talked a little bit about those wars. So I'm talking about the Barbary Wars, the Marine Wars. I'm talking about the American Revolution, and I'm talking about the American Civil War. But we're going to go back to about the late 1400s, early 1500s. All right. So this is just a Moorish PDF I got, some information I want you all to get, because it's showing you all that the ancient Moorish Empire was from Peru up through the Central America, up through Mexico, California, on across Arizona, on across the entire Gulf of Mexico, on through Alabama, on up to New York, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, the entire Europa, going all the way down to Algiers, Tripoli, over to Egypt, over to Iran. That's the entire Moorish Empire that I'm talking about. That goes back to Pangaea. So let's look a little bit more into this. The Moors dominated trade in this period. Trade was dominated by the Moors from the west and north coast of Africa to the Gulf of Mexico before the Inquisition of the Spanish and slow deterioration of the Moorish and Islamic influence. Even in the 1700s, the real was the unit of currency used in Mexico, which is the present standard currency of Saudi Arabia. We just talked about Saudi Arabia. This trade became fully interrupted when the United States developed an independent Marine Corps and Navy in the 1800s. They fought wars against the Moors, the Barbary Wars, and eventually won out in these confrontations. They later fought against wars against our people in Mexico. The hymns of the Marines declares that they fought, quote, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, referring to the exploits of the United States Marine Corps in the Mexican War and in its campaigns against the Barbary pirates of North Africa. Those Barbary pirates and some of the so-called Mexicans were the Moors. The Black Maroons, or the Moors from Florida, who had set up communities in Mexico in the mid-1800s. The cannon was also found amongst the so-called Mexicans, which was a signature weapon of the Moors and the Maroons of Florida. Maroons in Florida and Fort Negro, where the Black Moorish chief Tuscaloosa was captured by Colonel Duncan Clinch. And we talked about Tuscaloosa in another take. So here, you just see more about those wars dealing with the ancient Moorish Empire and how our empire never really was, broken up until I would say, well, really, I would say it's still going on now, believe it or not. But it says here that the trade was dominated from the Moorish Empire from the coast of Africa to the Gulf of Mexico before the Inquisition of the Roman Empire and the slow deterioration of the Moorish and Islamic influence. So when the Islamic influence started to decrease, that's when our people started to be denationalized more. Okay? And not Wahhabist Islam, ancient Moorish Islam. So when they started getting rid of that, that's when y'all starting to have the black Negro slave shit coming in. So then it says that the indigenous people of Mexico were the Moors. So let's go a little deeper into this right here. It says the indigenous blacks in Mexico went under many names like Mestizo, Cholos, Negroes, and even Indian. The term Marines comes from mare, which in Latin implies a navigator of the waters and also means black. So the Marines took the name of the people they were conquering, the Moors, a signature move of the grafted people. So it says that the indigenous blacks in Mexico were called mestizos, Cholos, Negroes, and even Indians. So the dark-skinned people of Mexico that they keep in the South and they never show you on TV, they have the full-blooded, the full beards like we do in North America, the so-called black men that have the afros just like us. They are the original Moorish Aztecs, the original Moorish Olmecs that built those pyramids and stuff in Mexico and Central America. But you're not going to see them on a little tourist guide, and shit like that. So yes, there are people in Mexico that look just like us, but they speak what we know as ancient Phoenician or ancient Latin or the ancient Punic Carthaginian languages. Because also when you think about ancient Carthage or ancient Phoenicia, think about Mexico, because they spoke the ancient Latin languages. It says right here, the term marine comes from mare, which in Latin applies a navigator of the waters and also means black. So if the word mare denotes the ancient Latin, that's also where you get the word Moor from. So the word marine, mare, that's coming from the Latin, and the ancient Latin speakers were the Moors from the Carthaginian, Phoenician, Canaanite empires, the Hebraic Empire. All right, and that was here in America, in Northwest Africa, and also what we call Europa or Phoenicia. Because keep in mind, remember now, the word Europa comes from the name from a Phoenician princess. And of course, we know the Phoenicians were, dark-skinned Moorish people. So even the name Europa is from a black queen. All right. So the next thing, then we're going to wrap it up. I want to read about a Catholic history of Alabama and the Floridas. All right. A Catholic history of Alabama and the Floridas. Also, too, I want to make this tape because a lot of what I'm talking about, I go real deeper into it in my book on a chapter dealing with certain wars. But I guess I just wanted y'all to get it right now. So let's kind of go into this. The history of Alabama goes back further than the histories of most other states of what is now the American Union, not to speak of the Aborigines who, though often powerful and skilled in savage warfare, kept no record. This history begins with the invasion of its broad plains by the renowned Spanish cavalier Hernando de Soto in 1540. Now, a lot of these authors, they write things to make our people seem savage, to seem uneducated, etc. So be careful with that. But what I'm reading right now is I'm about to go into the war that happened in, the southeastern states of Florida, Georgia, Alabama. That was between the Moors of the southeast and the Roman Empire of what we know of as Spain. And this happened around like 1539. And remember now, the Roman Empire of Spain, these was Moors. These was dark-skinned people too. So this is Moors versus Moors. The dark-skinned Spanish and the amalgamated mixed Spanish versus the full-blooded Moors of Alabama and Florida and Georgia. That's what we're talking about. And this was a war that happened in 1539. And I just kind of wanted y'all to get a little bit of it. So keep in mind too, Alabama or Ali Bamu is an ancient Moorish name. So Alabama is a very, very ancient place. Very, very ancient place. All right. Very, very, very ancient place. All right, here we go right here. Now we're about to talk about the Mavillian or the Moors of Mobile, Alabama, which was right there by the Gulf of Mexico. Because keep in mind now, the Moors of ancient Mexico, the Moors of ancient Central America, and the Moors of the ancient southeastern states of North America, the Gulf of Mexico, we was traveling between Mexico and Georgia and Florida and Alabama. I mean, we was doing that shit like it was nothing now. So that's why the culture in the southeast was very, very similar to the culture in Mexico. Because a lot of the Aztecs and a lot of the ancient Mayans, those Moors, when the Romans came in there and destroyed their stuff, guess where they came? They hopped on their ships and they came into the Gulf of Mexico and they went into what we call Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. So a lot of our ancestors even come straight probably from Mexico, believe it or not. Because they damn sure didn't stay there after Cortez and them came. They got the hell out of there. And a lot of them came right over here into Alabama. So let's go into this. Mobile, the oldest and most historic of Alabama's towns, has a name which sounds strangely in European ears and seems to suggest a shifting city. It is not, however, derived from anything connected with those mobility, but from a tribe of Indians or Moors whose land stretched from the coast far into the interior. Near a bluff on the Alabama stood their most important town, Marvilla, the strongly fortified residence of their emperor Tuscaloosa, the Black Warrior. All right, keep in mind, because we're going into a Moorish emperor right now. From this powerful cacique or emperor who made a desperate stand against the invaders and perished while defending. I don't want to read that because I don't think it went down like that. I got to be careful with that because I don't want to confuse y'all. This is the part I want y'all to hear right here. The awful battle between the ferocious soldiers of the proud and cunning giant king Tuscaloosa And the pale-faced strangers raised all day, October the 18th, 1539, fire being added to its horrors. The city became a smoking ruin. So dreadful was the slaughter that Bancroft wrote, quote, I know not if a more bloody Indian fight ever occurred on the soil of the United States, end quote. So in 1539, October 18th, the Roman Empire, led by Amalgamated Hernando de Soto, those pork-eating Catholics, went into the Gulf of Mexico, and they came across the Moors that were ruling Alabama. The Moors that were ruling Alabama had a giant emperor who was named Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa. So when you hear that name Tuscaloosa, like how the Alabama Crimson Tide is in where? Tuscaloosa? Well, in Mobile, which is in the South, the king or the emperor, his name was Tuscaloosa. And I go much deeper into that war in my book, so I don't want to spoil it here. But I wanted to introduce how the Moorish emperor of Alabama in 1539 was a giant king named Tuscaloosa. All right. And they said he was about 7 feet tall or something like that. He was a very, very tall man. And these Moors went to war with the Roman government in 1539 here in the southeastern part of North America. And this was also part of the American Revolution. So now y'all understand when you hear me say the American Revolution of 1539, the American Revolution of 1540, I'm talking about the Moors fighting against the Roman government in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And particularly this war led by the Emperor Tuscaloosa. So I want to dedicate this tape to the Mobilian Moors of 1539 and the Emperor Tuscaloosa, who fought to defend our homeland. And he was a Moorish emperor. Okay, so a lot of y'all may not know, well, who was a Moorish king of America? Because a lot of us may know about the kings of Europe and the kings of so-called Africa or Egypt, but we don't know about the kings of America. So one of the kings of America was Chief or Emperor Tuscaloosa, and he was the emperor of modern-day Alabama. So that's some history for you. So now you know a Moorish king of America, Tuscaloosa, all right? And he ruled over what's known as modern-day Alabama. So a lot of us who have ancestry that goes back to Alabama, because Blackbeard does, on my paternal side, I have ancestry that goes back to Alabama. So a lot of our ancestry that people that have, folks from Alabama, you may descend from some of these different Mobilian or, Moorish tribes who were ruling ancient Alabama, and with me, at least, like I say, on my father's side. So to get ready to wrap the tape up, I want y'all to understand that the modern day bleached out Mamluk Knights and Freemasons are currently putting forth efforts to bring back a slavery by using communism, democratic socialism, Nazism, and Satanism. They're trying to create a Zionist Jerusalem. So a lot of these wars and stuff that you heard me dealing with in the beginning with Albert Pike, these Mamluks been dealing with this stuff for hundreds of years, and they got certain goals and plans. So y'all don't be too happy about the government just giving people free money and people getting lazy and not really, staying on their shit. A lot of this could be a cloak for Satanism, Luciferianism, and communism, and democratic Nazi socialism. And we're going to wrap it with this. I heard the cracker say the other day by the name of Joe Biden. He was talking to Charlemagne, and he made a comment basically saying that if black people are not voting for the Democratic Party, that you're not black. Well, the reason why he's saying that is because he knows that the Ku Klux Klan and the Democratic Nazis from the American Revolution Part 2, known as the Civil War, he knows that you all don't know the origin of the Democratic Party. And he knows that you all want free stuff, you want to be lazy, and you just want to live off of the titty of the government or the titty of Satan, really. And he knows that you don't want your own independence. You don't want your own freedom. You don't want to be liberated. You don't want to live under your own republic. You don't want to reinstitute your own empire. So he knows that blacks want to come back to that democratic slave plantation. And that's why he made that comment and why he was so comfortable saying that. So, y'all got a lot to research from tonight's tape, look into it. I just wanted to drop this to you, give you a history lesson in tonight's tape. But it's your boy Blackbeard, man. I'm about to go get on this Shark Lotto Ether right now. It's some powerful shit, and I enjoyed the nice tape, but y'all stay tuned. I'm out.